Hello everyone. Today I'll be showing you the fastest and easiest way to replace an exhaust manifold on a Ford F-350 with a 5.4 liters. Now this one has a cracked manifold and a broken stud. And as you can see from this clip, space is very limited. First off, remove the engine mount nuts on the side you're working on and jack up your engine. Insert a piece of wood between the mount and the frame and sit the engine on it. You now have access to your manifold in a safe way. Next step is to remove the downpipe. Most of the time you can unscrew the nuts, but in this case, the nuts were rounded off, so we had to cut the studs. No worries, new ones are supplied with the manifold. Remove the side and the back bolts. Obviously they had to be heated up and cooled down before removing them. Disconnect the oxygen sensors and drop it down. You're now ready to work on that manifold. Now there are a lot of different ways to do this, but from having done hundreds of these, we found that the fastest and easiest way to do this is to melt off the manifold studs with your acetylene torch. Now why would I do this? Simple. With the manifold in place, there's hardly any room for a ratchet. And if you do decide to unscrew them, you'll have to warm them up first or they'll just snap. And if you have to warm them up, might as well just melt them off. You can save more than an hour doing it this way. If you're not convinced, just stick around and you'll see. When you're ready, pry off that manifold and it will fall right off. You can clearly see the crack in the manifold and the broken stud. This one is broken about 1/8 inside the head, but with the right tools it will come right off. The next step is to grind off the carbon from the manifold studs and clean the surface of the head where the stud is broken. Don't forget to cover the exhaust ports. Now comes the fun part. Take your easy stud out tool, and if you don't have one, buy one right away. This will make your life a lot easier. Supplied with the kit is a burr. You will need it only if the broken stud is recessed in the head, just like the one we have. Use it on any rotating tool to clean the surface of the stud and create a small bevel for the easy stud out nut to sit. There are two sides to the nuts, one side with a tapered end and one that is flat. The tapered end is for the studs that are broken inside the head, and the flat side for the other ones. Mount them on your plate using the supplied grease to prevent them from falling. Mount the plate on the cylinder head. Now the first studs are a bit tricky since you can't bolt the easy stud out plate to the head. Just hold it with one hand and the studs that are sticking out will guide the plate. You can now weld. The tapered cavity on the plate is a guide for the MIG welder. Make sure you firmly lean the nozzle on it, otherwise you won't have a good weld and you'll damage the plate. Now in this case, the MIG gun got stuck on the starter and we didn't get a good weld on the bottom stud. No worries, we'll just remove the top stud, reinstall the plate and weld it again. This time though, I'll be using my newest addition, Flexmig 360. If you don't have one already, I strongly suggest you get one. If you have a MIG welder in your shop, this tool is a must. What is it? Well, it's an extension to your MIG welder. It's universal and it takes seconds to install. And the coolest part? It's flexible. Now look how easily you get to those studs. Can you do it without all these fancy tools? Absolutely. But it's so much faster and so much easier if you use them. And remember, time is money. You can now unscrew the bottom stud. You can now repeat the process for the other studs. And this is where the Flexmig 360 tool comes in handy. On these trucks, there's so much stuff in the way that it's hard to go weld with a regular MIG welder. Trust me, I've done hundreds of these. There's AC lines, the AC dryer, the transmission dipstick. And the worst part? The shock tower is right in front of it all. Once you've removed the last studs, the rest is pretty much straightforward. Now that there are no studs in the way, clean the cylinder head. Install new studs, new gaskets and the manifold. Drop the engine, tighten the engine mount screws. Reinstall the down pipe. Make sure you clean all mating surfaces. Reinstall the inner fender and you're done. Hope you enjoyed.